Hey everybody, this is Tom Salemi. Welcome to this episode of the Device Talks Weekly Podcast. This episode is focused entirely on diabetes. My colleague Sean Whooley, associate editor at Mass Device, interviewed three of the principal players in diabetes. We talked with Kevin Sayer, or Sean did. Kevin Sayer, the CEO of Dexcom. He spoke with Jeffrey Brewer, the CEO of Bigfoot Biomedical, and Francine Kaufman, Dr. Francine Kaufman. She's the CMO of Senseonics. So we'll have three interviews for you in this episode of the Device Talks Weekly Podcast. Of course, we'll speak with Shacey Petrovic, CEO of Insulet, a little bit later this year at Device Talks Boston, which is happening on May 10th and 11th. Registration for Device Talks Boston is open. You can go to devicetalks.com to register. And don't forget to use your code DTW. That stands for Device Talks Weekly, DTW25. And you'll save 25% off the price of registration. You can use that same code on our Device Talks Minnesota registration. That'll open up next week. Putting together that agenda, working on that agenda as well. We've got Kevin Lobo from Stryker as a keynote, Tom Poland of BD as a keynote, and many more are coming. So don't wait on that one. Registration for Device Talks Minnesota opens up again next week. Before we begin this episode, I want to bring in our sponsor, AccuMold, micro-injection molding and tooling shop. I spoke with Aaron Johnson. Aaron is the Vice President of Marketing and Customer Strategy at AccuMold. I'll play bits and pieces of my interview with Aaron throughout this episode. My first question to Aaron was, tell us about AccuMold.
AccuMold basically is a micromolder, is what we call it, focused solely on micro-injection molding, thermoplastic components. We like to tell our customers we help them do more in the same space or more and less through plastic components. When you think about the innovations today in med device, whether it's minimally invasive devices or wearable technology, better patient care, a lot of that is contrived through miniaturization. And AccuMold is one of those enabling technologies to help our customers push the limits when it comes to the size and functionality of their device.
We'll hear more from Aaron Johnson a little later in the podcast, and appreciate AccuMold sponsoring of this episode. If you want to find out more information about AccuMold, you can go to its website. That is accu-mold.com. Now let's get this episode started. Whoa, stop the music. One little production note. Sean and I spoke on Thursday, and in our conversation, we'll talk about Senseonics awaiting FDA approval. Well, they got it. It came in on Friday, February 11th. So when we say they're awaiting FDA approval, just know that they got FDA approval. And if you want more details, go to Sean's article on our drug delivery website. Let's go. All right, you ready for this?
Ready.
Well, Chris Newmarker, how are you, sir?
Good to be here, Tom. How you doing, man?
Good. You enjoyed a nice lunch, I heard?
Yeah, I had a nice little lunch today. Their restrictions are getting lifted in Minneapolis, so it's good chance to up it a bit. So can't complain.
No, we'll see. So hopefully we'll see the same in Boston soon. Of course, we have our Device Talks Boston meeting in May and Minneapolis in June. So
that's right.
Let's hope this all works out. And we have on the line with us Sean Whooley, associate editor at Mass Device. Sean, hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. What's it like being a young, cool person in this time of COVID? Are you able to go out and have a nice time?
I'm able to kind of walk the line of what's good and bad, but I'm still pretty cautious about everything. I mean, there's definitely been some times where I've been a little bit like, oh man, I really wish it was 2019 again. But
yeah. Well, hopefully we'll find our way back there.
I'm a homebody anyway, so.
Well, that works out for all of us, doesn't it? Yes, as are we.
Enjoying the joys of the home, reading a book, like watching good TV shows.
That's right. A fine cigar, a dog at your feet.
Hey, by the way, talking about TV shows, I mean, Tom and Sean, I'd be interested. What do you think of fake Luke Skywalker?
Are we talking about, are we spoiling something, or is this?
The Boba Fett.
I haven't watched the final episodes of Boba Fett, which has been underwhelming. I wondered if we'd see another fake Luke Skywalker. Sorry, spoiler alert, folks. Apparently we're spoiling End of
more
Boba
fake
Fett.
Luke.
I've not watched a minute of Boba Fett, but now
I think
that
it was more
A,
like
it's
the
been spoiled, and B, it's been said to not be very good, I'm all set.
Yeah, I kind of watched it. I watched the series and I was kind of like, not very good. Like,
how do you make a boring series about Boba Fett? This is like Gladiator with Russell Crowe. How do you make a boring Gladiator movie? It's insane.
I mean, I'm not a professional TV critic, but I would just throw in that I felt like they tried to make everyone happy. I think that's what it was. It was like, look, we've got a Wookiee. We've got a.
That was a badass Wookiee.
It was a pretty cool Wookiee. I mean,
yeah. But I did see fake Luke Skywalker on The Mandalorian, and I thought that was awesome. Again, spoiler alert.
Just a little bit at the end. Versus like when they tried to almost have a whole episode like this. I think it was like the second to last episode. Like,
I haven't seen that one. So, but that's
almost the whole one was fake Luke Skywalker. Like,
interesting. Okay, all right.
Doing lots of shots of him at a distance.
I wonder why.
Animators are like can finally get a break,
Well, we are off the rails here, so why not ask the question, like, how long was Boba Fett in the damn Sarnak, for Christ's sake? Like 20 years? I mean, I don't understand. Like,
I mean, I think he had a whole room in there. Yeah, hopefully
he opened a Starbucks in the Sarnak.
I think he had Disney Plus. Plus in there.
Get great receptions in Starnak.
Not springing for HBO though.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
That's right. Sarnak was like, I want HBO, darn it.
All right. I think that's enough commentary on social events in this podcast episode. Chris Newmarker, I believe you've compiled a list for us of newsmakers. What should we call this list?
Real news, the Newmarkers newsmakers.
There we go. Yeah. All right. Let us go into number 5.
Well, number 5 on the list, we've got, Amazon Care is expanding nationwide. So, I mean, Amazon's getting like more and more into the health provider business. They're making their virtual health services available across the country. And they're expanding for a large rollout of in-person services. So, kind of really, a lot of people turned to telehealth during the pandemic, and Amazon's obviously betting that this is here to stay. And while you're buying more cat food or paper towels or whatnot, maybe I should get that sore throat checked out. You'll go do that too.
Sean Whooley, you wrote this up. Any takeaways from Amazon's growth?
It's interesting. It scares me a little just because Amazon.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Are you excited or terrified?
Amazon is a little bit terrifying, but no, I mean, on the surface, it seems good. So it seems like an interesting kind of leap, and I don't know, definitely intrigued by what Amazon can do in the healthcare space.
So, and I'm with you, Sean. I'm straddling the two, but I do have to say, Amazon's bookstore. We have one nearby, and something about it. It's really, really, it's a good experience. I enjoy going in there. I feel bad because I want to support the local stores, but just the way they lay it out, I don't know. Amazon's got some algorithm. They figured it out. So I'm excited to see what they can do in healthcare.
The bookstore. Yeah. I mean, definitely it's generous to say that we have a U.S. healthcare system. Like, so seeing any big player coming in and trying to do something different, yeah, I mean, if they can make things better for people, more power to them. Yeah,
it's more like a healthcare congress where everyone has their own jurisdictions and representation, and they like to fight a lot. So,
well, the economics are like a Rubik's cube. I mean, it's got you got the providers, you got all these payers, you got people like selling stuff to the providers and trying to get the payers to cover it. Oh, and then there's the actual people, the patients that are actually on the receiving end of all this. So yeah.
Oh, Sean is in his 20s, so he's not going to know what a Rubik's Cube is. Come on, let's try to.
Oh yeah, that's true. Myself.
You guys are dating me a little bit too much forward. I know what a Rubik's Cube is.
Yeah, come on, give Sean a little. Come on.
I can't do one, but I know what it is.
Tom. I mean, I can't do a Rubik's Cube either.
I got one side once, and I was pretty happy about that. All right.
You got a side, Tom? You got a side?
I did get a side, but never two. Let us roll on to number 4 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers.
Number 4 on the list, we've got Thermo Fisher launching a PCR testing platform that detects COVID-19 pathogens in the air. So you can basically take air samples and run it through this system and find out if there's COVID in the air. really interesting. I wonder if this is going to become widespread.
Sean, any takeaways from the story? Yet another Sean Whooley special.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. My first thought when I saw kind of the headline was, I can't believe this is kind of wild. But obviously, they kind of stress that it's not for really diagnostic purposes. I think it's more to be used to kind of analyze maybe the spread behind it and how it kind of works. I think more because if you've got a concert or something and you use this and you detect COVID in the air, well, what are you going to do? Stop it and tell everyone to go home?
Right.
That type of thing. I don't think it's so much for that, which was my first kind of instinct. Maybe that's just why. Maybe that's my lack of understanding. But yeah, it's still it's a pretty cool thing. Hopefully, it kind of helps us figure out what's going on because we're 2 years into this and we still don't really know.
It's going to be interesting about the timing is we have the poop test that we see so many graphs about, and measuring the sewage, and you can see the levels of COVID in there. Maybe this will be a long-term measure where you can kind of see the ups and downs, or maybe there will be like a COVID alarm that goes off, like exit the building, COVID has been detected, and we can have those go off at 2:00 in the morning. That'd be great.
COVID. Yeah, that sounds great.
In the living room. COVID in the living room.
The sewage test, I read an article in the New York Times that was a bit disturbing that I guess there's all these weird variants that they found in the New York City sewage that no person has walked into a clinic with it. One of the top theories is that's the rats. The rats are getting COVID and they got their own little stuff going on.
Well, folks, let's end the podcast on that note.
Everyone go
Thanks for joining us on Device Talks Weekly.
Everyone could crawl under their bed now.
Make sure you share that story with the kids at dinner.
Yeah, that's right.
After watching Ratatouille.
That's right.
There you go. That's right.
Hey everyone, time here. We're going to take a quick break to bring back our sponsor, AccuMold. I'm speaking with Aaron Johnson. Aaron, you mentioned micromolding before. What is micromolding?
That's a great question because there really isn't a textbook definition of what micromolding exactly is. It's an injection molding process. You still have to have a mold and open and close, way to open and close the mold, a way to get the material in there. So in a general sense, it is molding. But we've come to define micromolding in one of three ways. Certainly size is a big part of the definition. When you talk about micro, parts that are under a centimeter, even under a millimeter. So size is certainly part of the definition. But so is micro in features. We mold some larger parts, say 2 or 3 inches in size, but there's a micro feature to it, like a microfluidic channel per se, or for example, that is part of drug delivery or some kind of diagnostic device. The overall form factor is larger, but the feature sizes are very, very small. And the third way we really come to define micromolding is micro intolerance. Some of the projects that we've worked on, especially in micro optics, have plus or minus 2 or 3 microns in positional tolerance. So you're dealing with extreme tolerances of those features. So it goes kind of beyond maybe a traditional approach to injection molding. So micro in size, micro in features, micro in tolerance is usually one, in some cases, all 3 of those when it comes to how we define what true micromolding is.
Excellent. We'll have Aaron Johnson back in just a few minutes on this episode of Device Talks Weekly. For more information about AccuMold, go to www.accu-mold.com. All right, Sean. So you wandered far across the diabetes universe to talk to 3 of the principal companies in this space. So let's start with one of the largest, Dexcom. You spoke with Kevin Sayer, its CEO. You've spoken with him before on the podcast. And what has Dexcom been reporting lately? And what are we going to hear from Kevin Sayer?
Yeah, so I caught up with Kevin Sayer after their presentation at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. And we basically, the thing everyone wants to talk about is the G7, the next generation continuous glucose monitor, CGM, because awaiting FDA approval, there have been some delays on that front for everyone. And they're eager for it to happen. They're ready, and they've done all their submissions and stuff, so they're just waiting on it. But we got into that a lot, but we also got into some of the other things that Dexcom's working on, including some different offerings and platforms and Kevin Sayer told me that it's a year in which we'll see a lot of activity from the company. So he seems pretty excited.
Yeah, and in the interview, Kevin Sayer seemed really pleased with the company's performance over the past year. And as you indicated, there's more to come. So let's hear from Kevin Sayer, the CEO of Dexcom.
I think the overall theme here, first of all, we had another great year in 2021 with 27% revenue growth up to almost $2.5 billion, which is a lot of growth, over $500 million in revenue. Our patient base has expanded 39% from what we disclosed last year. And we define our patient base by active users, not by all the people that have tried the system. We really try and monitor the active use of the system. So that's a very real number. We achieved operating leverage on the bottom line. Our gross margins were 300 basis points higher than they were the year before. And again, more profitable during a time when, as a company, to increase access, we've purposely and thoughtfully decreased our annual revenue per patient across several market segments to grant more access to our consumers. So a year where we executed very well. And so those are those results. We talked a lot about a couple of products on that presentation. Our Dexcom ONE product is a product that we launched for the first time at the end of 2021. A G6 hardware platform, but the software experience is much different. And we launched that as a e-commerce platform only and cash pay product in those countries with pretty good results so far. We're giving the community a second option to pick from. It doesn't have all the features of our G series product. For example, it won't connect to an insulin pump, or you can't share the data with others who want to follow your data, but it is a good experience for an individual and it's very easy to use. And we look at that as a really good expansion opportunity for us, particularly in foreign markets going forward over the next while. And then, my favorite part, because I'm a geek, we talked about our G7 system that'll be coming out next year. We are waiting approval in Europe. It should be forthcoming relatively soon. And then we filed this with the FDA and are under review with the FDA as well. So some really good announcements for us yesterday. It was a good day.
Definitely. I know with G7, you were asked in the Q&A portion if you had a timeline. I know you said no timeline yet. You don't want to guess on anything, but hopefully
soon. A lot of those things are out of my hands now. The timeline we can control, our ability to manufacture the product, our ability to control the supply chain and get the components that we need to build the product. Those things we're controlling and managing very, very strongly. Can't manage the regulatory agencies. And as I've learned over many years in this industry, their sense of urgency is never the same as mine. So we'll keep doing what everybody asks and try and get the product through. So I don't have timeline, and we are very ready. We have a lot of G6 capacity here, and we'll have enough G7 capacity as well. So it's not like we're going to be without the best product in the market. We will be with either one of them. We just want it to be G7 because it really is a much better experience over time.
Before we get to kind of the data you talked about yesterday, just what are kind of the things that set G7 apart as far as I know it's different in size, comfort, things like that?
Well, the wear experience is really where you start, and the simplicity of using it. It literally, and we've shown this now, you unscrew a cap and put it on your body, push a button and you're done. And then pair it with your phone and you're off to the races. The use factor of the product is much more simple, and that will enable us to expand to more users. It'll get them engaged very quickly. The warm-up period is only 30 minutes. In the past, our warm-up period was 2 hours. And many of our customers have often quoted this statement: those are the worst 2 hours of my month or my week, however long our sensors are lasting, because you're without data for a couple hours. And so that half-hour warm-up is going to be a really good thing for our customers. For the environment, there's much fewer materials. It's much smaller. The smaller packaging is also good on the distribution channel side, because you don't have to take as much shelf space up, particularly in the drugstore, which pharmacy being our future channel. This is a global launch for us. We typically have launched, and most of our offerings, US first, get it going in the US, get it all going, and then move overseas. We're doing it all at the same time this time. I think our community will appreciate that a lot. And obviously, we're not going to every country or US in the beginning, but we're going to several of our larger markets very early in the process. The app is different. It gives you some of the information and some of the trends in the app rather than having to go to our second system, Clarity, which is a system that analyzes data as well. So all in all, it's a much different experience than G6. It will be a while before it connects with our partners on the automated insulin delivery side, simply because we have to get our product approved before they can finally get theirs approved. They are working with us now to get those connections up and running, and you'll see it in tandem and Insulet, hopefully, not too long after we launch. But Insulet's got to get their G6 system out, and they're awaiting an approval, hopefully sometime in the first, soon this year. And once it comes out, that will again provide another market opportunity for us and Insulet together to grow. You know what? It's got a lot of wonderful features. And long term, it will be cheaper for us to build. It was designed for manufacturing, so it's going to be a great product.
Yeah, and I know, with the data you presented at JP Morgan, a lot of emphasis on time and range. That seemed to be the centerpiece of it anyway. So you could sort of maybe just explain what time and range is and why the data was so important.
Well, let's go back. The G7 data, this was a clinical study, and what this was just pointing out is how accurate the system is. When people stick their fingers in the past, that blood finger stick, those things used to be, I believe, around 6% accurate versus a laboratory instrument. 5 to 6%, I think, is the number in those studies. I don't have that at my fingertips. We have taken a CGM path over time. Our data way back in the beginning days when I started here was in the mid-teens, mid to upper teens, as far as if you compare a Dexcom reading to a blood glucose draw. Well, with G7, we're now 8% accurate, 8% MARD, mean average relative difference. That's pretty close to what finger sticks have been. And that gives patients and our customers an opportunity to really make accurate decisions, not only for insulin delivery, but as they use our sensor for other things regarding lifestyle or the foods they eat. Even those who are on insulin, when you eat a meal that drives your glucose through the roof, you'll go, well, maybe I ought to not do that again. And the accuracy of that data becomes very important. On the time and range front, and this applies to G6 as well, but it'll be even more applicable to G7. We have time and range data right built into the app, for example, for people. But time and range is really a good health measure. Right now, A1C is the measure used often by healthcare professionals to determine how well your diabetes management is doing, or if you're in a pre-diabetic situation, how severe is your pre-diabetes and when do you cross the line? And that's a 90-day average, but you don't see anything that goes on during the course of a day. And you may have an A1C that looks good, but you may be having glucose that's out of control. And I showed two slides. A slide in my presentation at JP Morgan is somebody with type 2 diabetes, where the average type 2 person sticks their finger once a day. It's kind of standard of care there. And I watched my mom and my grandfather do that. And I watched both of them die from diabetes complications as well. But you stick your finger every morning, and if it says 100 or 125 or whatever, yeah, I'm good. Well, you go throughout the course of the day, those people can be above 180, which is the upper end of the ADA time and range guidelines, for multiple hours at a time. And that time that you're high causes horrible complications over time if you're high all the time. And the only way you can make the proper changes in your life is to know that those types of events are happening. And in one study I talked about by one of our partners, WellDoc had people on sensors for 24 weeks. And the average time in range for these patients, and they're type 2 patients not on insulin, increased by 3 hours by wearing CGM. A 3-hour increase, you can start doing health economic and math equations, leads to complications not coming or being delayed for several years. And for their patients who had an average glucose above 180, which is above the time in range mark, the average person after this 24-week study who started with average glucose above 180, they brought their average glucose down 54 points. And this type of information leads to dramatic changes in lifestyle, drug regimes, and exercise. We think it'll be a very important tool in the type 2 side, as it already is in the type 1.
So altogether, that data combined with all the features you talked about earlier just combines for what you think is going to be a real great product, real great offering.
Yeah, we think it will be a really good product offering. We're very happy with our our portfolio. Our G6 has been the premier product for a long time and still remains that, with its connectivity, interoperability, and its performance. But when we set down the G7 path, we wanted to make everything better, and we have. So talked a bit about a product called Dexcom One, Sean, which is one we launched in Europe. And it's basically our first effort to make a software solution a product differentiator. We've taken the G6 hardware platform and written a different app that literally takes some of the features out of our G series and makes it easier to use. Cash pay product only over our e-commerce platform for countries. And then, in the time that we've launched it, 1% of the insulin users, mealtime insulin users in those countries have purchased the system, and 2 of the governments now want to reimburse it. Given the rate that we're charging, we brought the cost down as well. So we believe we're going to have a product portfolio with a great on-body and hardware experience, and then offer a number of software solutions to patients over time to best manage the condition that they're trying to manage.
Yeah, and so just slightly moving from the G7, I know one of the biggest bits of news from Dexcom in the last year was the partnering on real-time APIs with Garmin. And I wondered if you could kind of explain why that was such a big deal and what sort of that means for the future of these types of partnerships and the developments in that area.
Oh, you bet. I'm happy to. And credit to Garmin for being the first to go. We've come to the realization that not everybody wants to take their CGM data the way we want to offer it up, that there might be a better way to get it or a better place to see it. And Garmin's a perfect example. People use their Garmin watches. The ability to get that data directly on your Garmin watch is very valuable to them. And it's not data that's shared with the phone. It's not a Bluetooth connection phone to watch. It's data that goes to the cloud and comes back. It comes through our live APIs to Garmin directly, and they display it the way that they want to and ingest it the way that they want. We believe this unlocks other partnerships as well. There's a company called Sugarmate, for example, that's owned by Tandem that now has the live APIs. And they have a reasonable number of users, but they like to see their CGM data a little different than the way that we present it. So we partnered with them on the live API side. And while they run the Dexcom app, they can see their data in another place. And giving people the opportunity, as long as they give us permission to share their data and use another app, is a great thing. And I think you'll see more of this. I think there are other opportunities with other companies going forward where this may work. 2022 holds about more activity than we've ever seen in a given year. A G7 launch OUS and in the US, continued expansion of the Dexcom One product line into the other geographies to give our customers more choices, continued development of the data platform and sharing data with others. We are working, for example, with Epic on the medical record side to try and get our data directly into patients' medical records, seamlessly from the cloud, again, with the API interfaces. You've got an Omnipod 5 launch from Insulet coming in 2022 that we're very excited for. We've worked with Insulet for a very long time, and the hope of an integrated product for our combined Insulet Dexcom users is something that's been driving them forever. So we're very excited about that launch. Tandem's making progress they had an R&D day recently. They have a new pump called T-Sport, which is a smaller, different type offering. We're hopeful we can see some new product developments out of that partner as well, and some of the other insulin delivery relationships that we have as far as connectivity. More data on the type 2 side. And really, we published a study last year called Mobile. This is a study where we took basal-only insulin users and put them on CGM. Oftentimes we have been lumped into a category. This product is only for people who have intensive insulin use needs, that other people with diabetes don't need it. And we put it on the basal insulin use and using patients, and the results were exactly the same as they are for the intensive insulin users. Significant A1C drops, significant time in range improvement, healthier, happier people who are in better control. And using this study, and then based on the results of this study, the ADA improved their guidance as far as continuous CGM use for basal insulin patients and recommended it. They gave the evidence an A grade. They say there's very good evidence for using continuous CGM with basal insulin. So we would like to, explore and continue to push that market. I think in 2022, and every year we're all about increasing access to CGM technology. It's interesting. Over the past 5 years, we've doubled the population of people in the United States who can have access to Dexcom technology and have it reimbursed. And our penetration within that reimbursed category hasn't changed. It's still, there's still a long ways for us to grow. And we've learned that increasing access is really the key to our growth on a worldwide basis. So you'll see us try things in several international markets to increase access for people, to make it easier for them to get, like the Dexcom One product. And we continue to push for access increases here in the US. And once we get coverage, it's not just getting coverage, it's making it easier. And easier for physicians to write the prescription and easier for patients to get it. So 2022 is going to be a year of many of the same activities, but some very big advances on the product front. And then, once we get the hardware platforms out there, what we're hopeful is we can then start coming up with several software solutions that are just going to be different than what we've had in the past. It's going to be a fun year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and giving me all that info. That was great.
Well, and as fun as that year is going to be, as my people tell me in my own, how you get evaluations, they always tell me you're not very good at celebrating. You always want to push. We need to recognize what a great year this company has had. Really, the past 2 years, during these trying times, we've grown almost $1 billion in revenue in 2 years when the world has been nearly at a standstill. That's awfully, awfully amazing. So it's been a great time period for us. So I can't wait for things to get back to normal, Sean. I need to get out and talk to people. I'm really tired of not. And just as I thought the curtain was coming up and I was going to go out and be with folks, now we're back again. And this new bug appears to be a lot more aggressive than the old one.
Yeah, we have some conferences planned for the year. We'll see how that goes, but hopefully things can get back to normal. Thank you so much.
All right.
Chris Newmarker, let us roll into number 3 on the Newmarker's Newsmaker.
Yes, number 3 on. Number 3 on the list. We, this was like breaking news. At right after market close on Friday that HeartFlow's SPAC deal's been called off. SPAC attack. This is like end of SPAC attack. They were saying this was a mutual decision. They were saying that this with Longview Acquisition Corp, saying this was a result of current unfavorable market conditions. It definitely seems like the markets have been on a bit of a roller coaster in recent weeks. So it'll be interesting to see if this is if this is a trend that some of these SPAC deals that have still been in the works are going to start getting called off. But $2.4 billion deal that was announced in July 2021, and it is over.
It was interesting when I talked to Leslie Trigg at Outset Medical. They went public the good old-fashioned way, and I asked her about SPACs, and I kind of thought she would. I half expected her to say, "Oh well, we really preferred going the traditional IPO route," but she was in favor of SPACs, and she's actually sitting on the board of a SPAC. So they're still obviously viable vehicles, but they're not foolproof. Yes, and HeartFlow is a great company. Yeah, they've got some really interesting tech like this FFRCT analysis, using AI, creating a personalized 3D heart model. But yeah, SPAC's off, but we'll see what they do next. All right, Sean, next up, we have Jeffrey Brewer. He's the CEO of Bigfoot Biomedical, and he has quite a story to tell. Tell us about that conversation.
Yeah, I got to speak with him for the first time and learn more about what he calls Bigfoot's transformational attempt to simplify CGMs with an all-in-one platform that includes a smart insulin pen cap. It was an interesting conversation. He's really passionate about diabetes care. It's very personal to him, as you'll learn, with his family and his son being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So it was interesting to hear what he had to say about what you may consider a new, different approach in the space to some of the traditional things we've talked about before.
That's great, Sean. So I know you opened up your interview asking how Jeffrey Brewer became CEO and founded Bigfoot Biomedical. So let's hear from Jeffrey Brewer.
I'm involved in Bigfoot and focused on the problem we're solving, which is how to support insulin delivery in the safest and easiest way. Because my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes about 19 years ago, going on 20 years ago now. Before that, I was a dot-com entrepreneur, and my life has, since that time, however, revolved very much around diabetes and an effort to see that technology was better employed in order to improve the quality of my son's life. And as I found millions of other people who are dependent upon insulin to live on a daily basis. I got very involved with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, where I was on the board of directors and gave a gift that started what became the Artificial Pancreas Project, which was the idea to take an insulin pump and a continuous glucose monitor, tie those two together with algorithms that would use the data from the CGM in order to drive insulin delivery, or else algorithms that would support insulin dosing through injections. Saw there was a big opportunity to use data, use technology in order to help people make this decision of how much insulin to take, which they have to do on a daily basis, and which is very high stakes. Actually was asked to be the short-time CEO of JDRF when there was a gap in leadership. I was asked to stand in for 60 or so days, and that ended up being a 4-year gig where I was the CEO of JDRF and had a wonderful opportunity to lead that organization. Also get really familiar with the FDA and had an opportunity through JDRF advocacy efforts to influence on behalf of patients the way the FDA thinks about these technologies that use data and software and algorithms and cloud systems and consumerized design in order to make tools more accessible to more people that would help support their insulin dosing on a daily basis. However, I left that in 2014 and partnered with a father of a child with type 1 diabetes, a gentleman named Brian Maslis, who actually has a wife with type 1 as well. Notable for being the first person in the world to hack into an insulin pump and a continuous glucose monitor and enable a do-it-yourself closed-loop system for insulin dosing. He did that himself about 6 years before there was any such product available in the general marketplace, and basically turned my attention to the opportunities as an entrepreneur that I might be able to pursue, and then doing so with him to see what we could add to the equation in terms of industry and how you can take technologies and make them usable and easy and ultimately to make life more convenient and easy and safe for people with insulin requiring diabetes. We've been on this journey for about 7 years now. And really happy to say, after developing a number of technologies that we intend to deploy across the spectrum of people who are dependent upon insulin on a daily basis, we've launched our first system, the Bigfoot Unity system, a transformational attempt to simplify CGM and data and basically getting people to the answer of how much insulin they should take at a given point in time. People don't want data. They want to know what to do and how to stay safe. And that's what Bigfoot Unity does. It's a revolutionary smart pen cap solution that right there on the insulin pen takes the data from a continuous glucose monitor and tells you how much insulin to take. It is the first and only of its kind here in the United States. And we think it really points the way forward in terms of the consumerization of healthcare. It's a great example of how you can make something simpler and easier and more accessible to a large and heterogeneous population of people. And that includes type 2 diabetes as well as type 1 diabetes. So we're at a meaningful inflection point here where we've just launched this system and we're seeing some great adoption. We have a couple dozen clinics prescribing it to a couple hundred patients. And we're seeing some really big changes in those people's lives reported by them, that it's making their lives easier, and they're really happy with the support to have a partner in this journey with diabetes.
Yeah, that was one of the things I definitely wanted to get into was Bigfoot Unity. It's definitely, sort of the company's main offering. So I guess just if you could even explain further, what are the features, what makes it so convenient, usable, and helpful for managing diabetes?
Well, a couple things. We have thought about this as a complete solution that's very holistically designed for all the pieces to fit together. So it's not a smart pen added to a CGM, added to an app, added to cloud systems that capture data and provide it to clinicians. It's really all of those things and delivered under a single umbrella. Everything comes in a single box. It is the most consumerized that certainly diabetes medical device has ever been, in that it's simple, all-inclusive. It is trained by Bigfoot. It is supported by Bigfoot. It's not a bunch of pieces provided by different companies with different apps and different instruction manuals. It's a holistically designed system that is meant to be easy to access for a wide range of people who are, for unfortunate reasons, now dependent upon this drug insulin to stay alive on a daily basis. So everything comes in one box. It's trained as one piece. We're not selling a smart cap. We're selling a solution. So everything but the drug itself provided by Bigfoot. And we're doing it in a way that makes it seem more like a service offering than it is a purchase of a medical device. We're not selling a gadget. We're providing an ongoing experience and support for this person in their journey on insulin therapy, which means, for instance, if they are switched from one brand of insulin to another, because we support all of them in the US marketplace, then we're just going to send them the new pen cap that fits with the insulin pen from the new manufacturer. This is something that's actually quite common in that payers are now the determinant of what brand of insulin a person is using. When my son was younger and in the home, we used to get a letter from the insurance company saying, we've negotiated a better deal with Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk or Sanofi, and therefore you're going to be taking this insulin from now on if you want us to pay for it. Well, that happens to about a third of patients every year that they get switched. We're basically making that a seamless process for clinician and for patient to basically send them the new tools they need to work with that particular type of insulin, to auto supply all the glucose test strips and lancets, the needles that go on the end of the insulin pen, even the alcohol swabs that they use or don't use to prick their finger or mount a CGM. Basically looking at all the aspects of the experience and collapsing them together so there's fewer moving pieces, one company that stands behind it all. And that is going to make it usable, more trainable by a broader population of people because it's just simpler. Now, we also have, from the standpoint of the clinician, an equally purposeful presentation. The clinician has a different set of needs. And so our tools for them, called Clinic Hub, are geared towards managing a large population of patients that are using Bigfoot Unity. So not just the one person's experience, but dozens or hundreds of people using the therapy. And it's designed to take all the data that is captured by these devices automatically, the insulin dose times, the glucose readings, whether they be blood glucose monitor or CGM every minute of the day, collapse all that information in a very digestible fashion and add value to it with analytics that help point the clinician to the right answer in terms of how to modify that therapy, and then actually make the changes in the interface and push those directly out to a patient, basically enabling the clinician to be more of a partner on an ongoing basis without requiring them to come into the office or even to talk to them through a Zoom session or a phone call. It can happen asynchronously. This is going to be a better way to leverage their time and ability to support the patient, and also just add a more scalable option for the therapy in that clinic.
You've obviously, as you said, you've been involved in this from the business aspect for several years, but you've been doing it on a personal level, watching someone manage diabetes for 20 years, like you said. I guess from your perspective, how far has diabetes tech come and how far, I guess, are companies like your own trying to take it now?
Well, in some ways, I think it's come a long way. Companies like Bigfoot exist and we brought a product to market. It is the result of a lot of effort by dozens of people over many years to conceive of and give birth to a new and simpler approach to insulin therapy. However, I have to say that in other ways, things haven't changed a lot. Most people who are on insulin shots literally get, not most, almost all people on insulin shots get a piece of paper that tells them the instructions for how to dose insulin. The high-tech version of that is take a picture of it on your iPhone so you don't have to carry the paper around. A set of instructions that require calculations that require a person to understand how insulin works and that it takes 20 minutes to start working. It doesn't peak for an hour and then has a 3-hour tail. So when you're using it, you have to be careful not to over-insulinize, treating a high glucose reading. All of that complexity, just like my son got that piece of paper, or we got it as his parents in 2002, that's still here. So that's what we're really trying to displace. There is absolutely no reason that there shouldn't be a digitized experience that takes continuous glucose monitor data, turns it into here's what to do based on the doctor's instructions. And that's what we're bringing. And unfortunately, not enough people have access to tools like that yet, but we're trying to change that.
So as far as Bigfoot, something I always like to ask is what's next? You can never predict it, but, any other sort of products, ideas, what kind of plans or expectations do you have going forward?
Well, our learnings lead us to believe that there needs to be a range of different options for different parts of the insulin using population. So people with type 1 diabetes, about a third of those folks are using pumps, which are going to increasingly be closed loop systems that are using data in order to partially automate insulin delivery. Those are going to be an important part of the ecosystem. We have developed such a system internally, and we'll be taking that forward into the marketplace in the future. That's going to be for some people, mostly type 1. Then there's shots and multiple daily injection, intensive insulin therapy, type 1 and type 2. That needs another solution, which we call Bigfoot Unity. Bigfoot Autonomy, by the way, is what we call our pump-based system. And then there's a need for people with type 2 diabetes when they're beginning their journey on insulin, which the first step is usually a once a day or twice a day basal insulin that they take. Bigfoot Certainty is a product we're developing to address that need. So all these different folks are at a different stage of their journey, different stage in type 2 diabetes with regard to progression of the disease, different preferences in terms of whether they want to wear a pump, whether they want to give injections and have a little more distance physically from the disease. All of that means different people have different needs and there need to be different solutions. So we plan to provide different solutions over time. And Bigfoot Unity is the one that's first to market. And where we think, frankly, the largest unaddressed need is because there's nothing that many of our patients could be able to use besides CGM by itself in some cases, which doesn't actually make as big of a difference if you can't take the data and make decisions based on it to give yourself different amounts of insulin. This is one of the things that's challenging. CGM is amazing and transformative, but it only provides data. And so if a person can't incorporate all that data and make the decisions and calculations about insulin, then it's really a lost opportunity for them, which is what we're trying to remedy by layering on top. Well, the data is one thing, but what do I do with the data is another, and be in partnership with that person in order to make those decisions.
Great. Yeah, well, that's really all I have. I don't know if there's anything, you thought you might touch on that you wanted to touch on, but other than that, yeah, really appreciate you taking the time and telling me all about Bigfoot.
Well, one thing I might talk about further, our business model, which is, I think, as innovative as is the product itself. I talked about the tools for the patients that they carry around that help them literally to determine how much insulin to take and when on a daily basis and throughout the day. I talked about Clinic Hub, the tools that supports clinicians in the management of those patients. But one of the other aspects of innovation is how we're having it reimbursed, or rather how we're enabling clinicians to be reimbursed for not only the solution we're providing, but for the time and effort they spend to support patients. So remote physiologic monitoring is now a big trend in the reimbursement landscape. And what it is a class of CPT codes that are billable by clinicians that were intended to facilitate treatment of chronic disease by gathering data and actually helping people to live better with a chronic disease. It was spearheaded in cardiac and COPD, and now we're bringing it to diabetes. And it really applies perfectly to what we're doing, because we're helping people to make decisions about insulin. We're tracking the decisions they make, the glucose values that ensue based on those decisions, and then we're getting all that information back to the clinician through the tools that we provided. That enables them to make the tweaks to insulin settings that are necessary because it's a very personalized therapy. So this feedback loop of generating data, clinician support for the patients, seeing how that goes, and then looking at the data in the future, this whole cycle is reimbursed by the remote physiologic monitoring codes. So the way we're going to market is to actually contract with clinics, healthcare systems, or even individual independent providers for what becomes a service to them that we bill for on a per patient, per month basis. And then they handle all the reimbursement and they make the decisions with regard to what patients are appropriate for the therapy and how they support those patients. So we're a business partner now of the clinics to help them have patients do better, to more scalably treat more patients more effectively, and then also to have economics that support that efficient scaling. So the business model is a key aspect of the innovation that we bring. And we think it really provides an opportunity both to align incentives between payers and ourselves. Our tools need to be used in order for the reimbursement to take place. 16 out of 30 days on a monthly basis, the person has to be using the tool, or else they can't be reimbursed, which I think makes sense. It should be used, or else it shouldn't be paid for. Also, the clinicians, they need to spend time in supporting the patient and interpreting that data and then leveraging that data in order to bill for that time. But these are the right incentives. These are the right things you want people to be doing, using the tools, and doctors taking the data and leveraging that on behalf of patients. And it all works really well. This is our business model and how we're able to bring this to patients here in the early stages. Another thing I might mention is our partnership with Abbott. The Freestyle Libre 2 is a great sensor. It's easy to use, very simple, easy to train. Abbott has been a wonderful partner that has allowed us to integrate that with our system. So our pen caps literally talk to the Freestyle Libre like the readers that Abbott provides. So they've given us an opportunity to really knit together all these pieces in a holistic design that is easier to use. And just being associated with now the most used in the world, most used in the US and fastest growing continuous glucose monitor has been a big benefit to us, because they've been able to help a lot of people. But we can actually extend the amount of help that can be provided and help people do even better. CGM gets you to one place, but CGM plus the support to interpret that data gets people to another place.
Really appreciate you taking the time. It was nice to meet you via Zoom. And
yeah,
thank you to everyone else on the call listening in. Appreciate helping to set this up.
Pleasure to meet you. Have a great day.
All right, let us roll on to number 2 on the New Markets Newsmakers, another one by Sean Whooley.
That's right. Well, the number 2 on the list, we've got Abbott, confirming the first implants of their dual chamber leadless pacemaker system. Kind of the idea here is you got two leadless pacemakers that you one position in the right ventricle and the other in the right atrium, and they can synchronize and, provide a dual chamber leadless pacing. So now these are, going in people. They're they're testing them out, and we'll see how it goes. But it's exciting. I mean, Medtronic, they actually, with their micro technology, kind of like in some cases we're creating the equivalence of dual chamber pacing, just because you have cases where you actually don't need the pacing on both sides. The dual chamber was actually just like doing sensing on one side, and so they could like use algorithms to kind of like measure what was going on the other side, and provide something that was equivalent to it. But this is Abbott just saying like, hey, we're just going to provide pacing on both sides of the heart. That's their thing that they're working on to compete. So we'll see how this goes. But definitely the idea of having like nice little pacemakers inside the heart sounds a lot better than stringing down leads to the heart.
Absolutely. Sean Whooley, anything to add?
Oh, Chris kind of covered it. I mean, I recommend everyone reads everything we talk about and write, but especially this one, because there's a picture with it and the photo. It's just one of those things where I always am amazed that those go in the heart, that those little things are doing what they're doing, type of thing. So that's my number 1 suggestion. But yeah, it's really interesting, and hopefully it proves to be, again, a step forward in the pacemaking space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
And Abbott seems to be on a roll lately. And we had Santosh Prabhu of their structural heart program on Device Talks Tuesday, this Tuesday, talk about heart valve delivery systems. And folks want to check out. It was a great conversation with him and Stan Rowe. of NXT, formerly of PVT. So good conversation for anyone who wants to get some high-level tech talk. You can watch it on demand at devicetalks.com. All right. Roll us into number one, Chris Newmarker. This is all you, baby. Chris Newmarker special.
Yeah, that's right. This was, this came out early this week. It was got a heads up from Cook Medical Media Relations. Thanks a lot that they were selling part of their business. And it's a nearly $1 billion deal, $875 million to be specific. But Cooper Companies is buying Cook Medical's reproductive health business. And this is a $158 million a year business. They were up 17% in constant currency last year. Cook's been in that business for 40 years, but kind of saying that they had a top official at Cook Medical saying that they thought it would be a better fit over at Cooper Surgical. So they're selling off the business. They're saying it's not gonna affect jobs because the people at the plants who are making this stuff are still going to be making it for a few more years, and they're going to train them to transition to making other things inside Cook. But yeah, nice big M&A deal for the week.
Hey folks, Tom here. We'll take one final visit with our sponsor, AccuMold. I'm talking with Aaron Johnson of AccuMold. Aaron, how does AccuMold work with medical device companies?
So we talk about, the miniaturization challenges that many med device companies are facing today, minimally invasive technologies, wearables, better patient care, connectivity. All of those technologies are really centered around miniaturization. I tell people all the time that, we've been in the wearable business for almost 40 years supporting the hearing aid market. Didn't originally call them wearables, but today that's really what they are, and doing more than just amplifying sound, but having the Bluetooth connectivity and heart rate monitoring and all sorts of other functionality. Well, you think about that's just one industry, one device, and whether that's you move that over to blood glucose monitoring or some transcatheter stent deployments. There's all sorts of applications in the med device world where miniaturization is of high benefit. The smaller you can make it, the better for the patient, or you can add more value to it or more connectivity. So it's better for the patient-doctor relationships. And really so much of that centers around miniaturization. The AccuMold has had the fortune over the last almost 4 decades supporting the med device industry by helping them shrink their device. Do more in the same space or do more in less is ultimately the challenge.
Well, that is great. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you, AccuMold, for sponsoring this episode of the Device Talks weekly podcast. Once again, for more information about AccuMold, go to its website, www.accu-mold.com. That's AccuMold with a dash in between the U and the M. All right, we're back again with Sean Whooley. Sean, you've done 3 big interviews for this episode, so thanks for your terrific contribution. The last one is another company with some great news lately, Senseonics. You spoke with Francine Kaufman. She is the Chief Medical Officer at Senseonics. Tell us a bit about what Senseonics has been up to and what they've accomplished.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was my first time ever speaking with Senseonics, despite them obviously being a big player in CGMs. And I got to talk with the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Fran Kaufman, about their Eversense CGM, which they are nearing FDA approval. They are expecting it any day now for 180-day wear time, which doubles the platform's previous wear time. They had clinical trial data last year that demonstrated that the Eversense 180-day CGM is pretty much the same as the 90-day, but with the extended wear time, obviously, but performs the same and provides the same help in diabetes management. So yeah, they're expecting FDA approval any day, but we talked about that and what the company's sort of next moves are and perhaps an even longer wear time that's already in the works. So it's they're excited about their future, and it was good to hear about that.
That's great. I know Dr. Kaufman has been in the diabetes space for a long time. She previously worked and led up the program at Medtronic. So she has lots of great information and insights to bring. So let's hear from Francine Kaufman, Chief Medical Officer at Senseonics.
So I am an endocrinologist. I was in academic medicine from the end of the 1970s all the way until 2009, where I was chief of my division at the Children's Hospital at the University of Southern California, and had just an opportunity to do a lot of research, both basic as well as clinical, in diabetes prevention, diabetes technologies, diabetes therapies, understanding some of the epidemiology of diabetes, particularly in children. And then in 2009, I became the chief medical officer at Medtronic to have the opportunity to help them bring forth the first hybrid closed loop device. So I was there for 10 years, brought out the first device that met those criteria, saw a couple 100,000 patients using it, and then had an opportunity to go to Senseonics, which I was very, very interested in as a very innovative, disruptive CGM technology, and one, I think particularly having a tremendous role for a number of patients who don't like wearing transcutaneous devices, don't like inserting devices themselves, and who really need exquisite accuracy, which is what the Eversense system can do. So I've been there for 3 years, really enjoying it, helping with some of the clinical aspects that they have, obviously looking at data, the clinical trials, helping put forth the submissions we have now for our next generation Eversense device, our E3 system, that in the US will bring from 90-day to 180-day device. And in Europe, we'll take the 180-day and still have a 180-day device, but with significant improvements. So just excited about where we are, particularly excited about our continued pipeline, and enjoying being able to interact with people like you who are interested in innovation in the diabetes field.
Great. Yeah. Well, it's cool. It's good to know that you kind of covered it all, from both the delivery systems at Medtronic to now the monitoring systems. Obviously you mentioned Eversense and the 180-day sensor. Last year was a big year, winning CE mark, and then the company released data on the 180-day sensor that is leading to what we believe FDA clearance soon. So I guess if you could just kind of walk me through how big of a year 2021 was, and maybe how big you're expecting 2022 to be now.
Well, in 2021 was an amazing year that we got so far, all of us, in the midst of a global pandemic, which, having been in medicine my entire life, I could not have imagined. If somebody would have told me any minute before this appeared that it could happen, I would have never believed it. So I think, it's just been remarkable that we've been able to push forward, obviously with a lot of partners like the FDA, as well as regulatory authorities in Europe, a lot of clinical partners, and obviously with the patient focus in mind. We did have a big year in 2021, certainly got our submission to the FDA and to BSI, our regulatory authority, for CE mark, delayed a little bit. And that approval, like everything's been delayed, and, so appreciative of what these agencies have done in being able to bring forth such innovation to combat the virus. So, we're willing to step aside, as we all have, to be able to get a handle on this pandemic. So, but we're waiting. We do think it should be imminent that we will hear, and, very, very excited then to be able to present a 180-day device in the US, obviously doubling the duration of the device we have now, having the number of insertion and removal procedures, reducing the calibration frequency after day 21 with our new calibration scheme, some ease of use and other innovations that the patient, we're sure, will appreciate. And, just excited about being able to maintain that kind of accuracy that we've had in the past as well. So it's, nothing could be greater on the European front. Again, those innovations with reduction in the calibration scheme, as well as improvement in some of the user interaction, chemistry improvement, all kinds of things that we're excited, even though we've had a 180-day product there for quite some time. So,
yeah, obviously everyone is dealing with the delays, and everyone seems to understand why with the regulatory bodies. But is a company prepared for the rollout immediately once it receives?
Well, we have a great partner with Ascensia Diabetes Care. So they are our commercial arm, our marketing arm, and very, obviously interactive with them, aware of what's going to unroll together in this great partnership that we have, and just very excited about, how that will hit the market. No, people are interested and just ready to be able to give them what they hope for.
And could you expand a little bit on the partnership with Essentia and what kind of the impact of that partnership has been?
But it's been a great partnership. They bring forth, they had huge presence in the field, as well as that huge experience in marketing, commercialization, and enables us at Senseonics to really focus on what we do best. We started as an R&D company, and so we'll be responsible for, obviously, future innovations, of which we have a really robust pipeline that will also involve integration as we go forward with other devices. And our clinical trials are done by us, whatever collaborative clinical studies, people are interested in, as well as the regulatory approval. So we'll go back to what we do best and, work with them to really be that commercial arm for us.
Great. And you mentioned a couple of things, ease of use, things like that. What are some of the main features, along with obviously what the durability situation with 180 days, that Senseonics is most excited about with Eversense?
We do have some improvement in chemistry and some improvements or innovations in the, software as well. So, just as far as setup, all of it will be easier for the patient, from the time they get the device implanted. And we're also working on improving that. We're working on some tools that will enable the clinician who we do train and certify to be able to insert and remove the implantable sensor, to innovate in that sphere as well. So, but going forward, just with this launch of the Eversense C3 system, with a sensor lasting up to the 180-day mark, or 6 months, the main improvement, obviously, in the US will be the duration. The accuracy will be maintained, with our SBA sensor. The MARD in our PROMISE study was 8.5%, which is very, very high accuracy. So we're excited about that. And then, just some of the innovation around calibration. So with calibration reduction, which is something we know the patients want as well. So when we do surveys and, get feedback from patients, because we are very patient focused, we really do everything with the patient center in our mind. One of the things they continue to ask for is longer duration and, reduction in calibration. So we'll be able to deliver on both of those with the E3 system.
Great. And you mentioned earlier, you're very excited about your product pipeline. Could you tell me about anything else that's in the works, or anything else we might be hearing more about this coming year?
Absolutely. So, we're looking to extend to a year. That has been our goal for quite some time. We have some chemistry modifications, actually, some fundamental changes in the sensing surface itself that we believe, and we have early feasibility, actually we're maybe in the late feasibility stage at this point, as to how to get to a 365-day sensor that we believe will also require calibration. It's hard to imagine you could put something in the body for a year and not have it calibrated, but we think we can get the calibration frequency to once a week, which we also believe the patient will be excited about. For most of the other sensors, they're completely changing out the system, either once a week, every 10 days, or every 14 days. So to ask them to do a finger stick for a sensor that could last 365 days, we, really believe, and we have, certainly marketing indications that they will be very happy to do that trade-off. And then once we get there, we're looking to add a battery to the sensor, which will not increase its diameter, but its length marginally increased. And then with the battery, what would be possible is that the transmitter could be taken off. The device could be used as a intermittent scan device with the smartphone, or perhaps another device itself. We're looking into it. And then you could scan that device, get the reading, get the backfill, and have something that would be really marketable, we believe, for the type 2 population. On intensive insulin, on perhaps just basal insulin, and likely not on insulin at all. And then, that lasts a year. You could leave it in place, query it when you need to, leave it when you don't. And then for those who really want real-time readings as well, which we believe is very, very important in the intensively managed patient, they could have the opportunity to take that transmitter off. It's a big event. They're getting married, they're graduating, they're, I don't know, doing whatever they want to do. They want to leave that transmitter off, then they can scan it. And when they get back home, they can put the transmitter back on and have real-time readings again. So we're excited that we'll be able to really have an offering that will meet the needs of this spectrum of people with diabetes.
Awesome. And, you mentioned earlier just kind of doing all this in the middle of a global pandemic. It's something I do like to kind of ask people is just, how has this sort of, the past going on 2 years now, I guess, how has it, changed maybe the way you operate, changed the way you see the diabetes business or anything like that? Has there been a way of stepping out of the pandemic to say we made it through and we're better for it, I guess?
Well, I think we're all better for it. I still practice medicine. I still see patients, and, having CGM available, getting that real-time data. So for Eversense, it's in the cloud. I can see a patient, or they can call me if they've got an issue. I just pull it down. There it is, available for me as their, clinical guide, or, obviously as their endocrinologist. And so it's really, telemedicine has been something, I think is in some ways helped in that in-between time between visits. And, I've obviously done a number of real visits on telemedicine. It's not so bad. And I kind of miss being able to touch the patient, really, connect. But I can connect this way. So I think we've learned a lot about the capability that we can do, in this kind of setting. A couple of my grandchildren went to kindergarten on Zoom. I'm not sure it's the best venue for kindergarten, but for diabetes care, for healthcare altogether, I think we've learned a lot on how we can be there, not only for the visit, but more of the time in between the visits to really enable the patient to manage their diabetes to the optimum. I just think we've all found some inner strength, some collectiveness around this pandemic. Our engineers, many of them have come in to our office very protected, some using off scheduling so that there's not as many people being exposed with all PPE. We find a lot of inner strength to be able to go forward and to work to make life better for people, particularly those of us in the healthcare arena.
Awesome. Well, that's all I had as far as questions. I don't know if there was something you thought you were going to touch on or wanted to touch on, but that's it for me.
Well, I just wanted, to maybe say that of all the innovations I've seen, so when I started my career, we had urine testing and animal insulin. We had not proven yet in the late 70s that actually managing glucose mattered. That didn't come till 1992 with the conclusion of the DCCT study. So I've seen a lot of innovation. Probably the most important, I wasn't around for the discovery of insulin, but pretty much everything since then were finger sticks themselves. I mean, knowing what the glucose value was so important. And then I would say the next big leap was CGM. And CGM having that ability to look at continuous glucose, to see a trend, to understand the direction of change, to get real-time alerts and alarms has really made a huge difference for patients and in our ability to get them intensively managed. So as we get closer and closer to being able to match insulin delivery with our devices closer to what it is like physiologically, and maybe at some days, some cellular replacement, I still think that we'll need CGM to be sure things are working well, to understand part of our physiology better. And what better device for that in the future? An implantable one that could last a year, that you could query when you want to. And when you don't have to get that information. So I'm just excited that we'll have something that will be meaningful through this next evolution of how we manage diabetes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to hopefully reporting on FDA clearance soon and all that.
We are too, Sean. So thank you. Thanks for your time, and thanks for the questions.
All right, well, we'll wrap this episode up right there. Sean Whooley, as the visitor, you get to call the coin toss. Heads or tails?
I'm going to go with tails.
You win. You want to go first or second?
Woo-hoo! Whoever gets the toss in the Super Bowl, Rams or Bengals, take note. Tails never fails.
Are you doing a prop bet on that one?
I'm not, but maybe now I will. I'll go first. You want me to tell people where they can find me?
Where can we find you, Sean Whooley?
You can find me on LinkedIn, SeanWhooley. That's Sean Whooley. And then the same name plus WTWH is my Twitter handle. So
excellent.
Find me.
They will find you, and they will tag you, and they will find you, Chris Newmarker. Where will they do that?
Yeah, Chris Newmarker. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter at Newmarker, just spelled just like a new marker.
Excellent. And I am on Twitter at MedTechTom. I'm on LinkedIn, Tom Salemi, Salemi. And, a few things. Don't forget, Device Talks Boston is happening on May 10th and 11th. You can save yourself 25% by using the code DTW. That's for Device Talks Weekly, DTW25. And you'll save 25% off whatever rate we have going at the moment. Right now, we're on our early bird rate. So
you got to be there or be square.
We'll have we've got a great lineup of keynotes at Minnesota. We'll have Tom Poland of BD and Kevin Lobo of Stryker. And of course, in Boston, we'll have Mike Mahoney of Boston Scientific and Shacey Petrovic of Insulet. So it's kind of a continuation of our look at diabetes. I think it was probably the one company we didn't cover in the episode today, but she will be well represented, or Insulet will be well represented at Device Talks Boston. Finally,
really exciting speakers.
Yeah, no, it's a great time. The agenda is taking great shape, and we'll have the full agenda up probably in a week and a half. And I think folks will have a great time. Finally, regarding the podcast, please do, what do we want to do again, Chris?
Like, follow, subscribe.
There it is. Do subscribe or follow on your podcast channels, Apple, Amazon, etc. And of course, share this podcast episode on your social media channels, and make sure you tag Sean, Chris, and myself so we can be part of those conversations. That's it. That's a wrap. Tune in next week. We'll have another great episode of the Device Talk Weekly podcast waiting for you.
Hey, stay healthy, everybody.